Good Grand Rising, good people. Grand Rising, how you doing? This is your coach Renz, getting ready to start the day, going live. Going to talk about one of those parts of the biblical studies that I went through that I was like, something's wrong with this book. The math thing messing. That is what we're going to talk about today. Give me some chocolate with my barbecue smoked chocolates for my cigar. Maybe about 5 minutes people get on. We are a channel where we deconstruct Christianity and also some other religions every now and then, depending on what religion is. We also talk about consciousness and history and things of that nature. And as always, conversation always going deep left and right. Gotta clear my palate for my cigar. That's a pretzel. Today is my big girl's birthday, my oldest daughter's birthday. Had to wish her a happy born day today. Send us some money later. That's all they want. All they want is some money. But we're going to talk about Romans 8 today. For most people who walk away from this religion, things like Romans 8 wouldn't have bothered them. Probably didn't even think about it. Probably wasn't even part of their thought process or anything. But it was part of mine. Part of it because I spent a lot of time teaching this book. And when you're teaching it, you wind up going over a lot more information. But it's one of the popular, it got some of your popular sayings in it that Christians use, they still use today. And they have no idea what they're talking about. That's the sad part. They're sitting up here using a verse, using sayings, and actually don't have an idea as to what it's really talking about. You know, I had a comment on one of my videos earlier today. As I was getting ready. This gentleman on TikTok was telling me, since I'm not a believer, I obviously don't understand God's word, so therefore I should stop talking about God's word. And my response was, how sad it is that a believer doesn't even understand this God's word. So you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even know what you believe in. And when I said that, one of the things popped into my head that reminded me of one of the reasons why I walked away from this religion. You know, trying to give people for that 5 minute mark. Got one more minute, then we're really gonna get started into it. I want to appreciate everybody, you know, share the channel, please. Share the videos. Continue sharing. The channel has grown tremendously this month. I appreciate it. It's all because of you guys. You know how I like to do it. If you're testing, I don't know how far we're going to go. Can't say. That's why on days like today, I'm going to jump around and, you know, we might jump into something else. But I don't know if I'm going to make it through Chronicles. It's long and boring. So that's why we're going to Romans 8. And I'm going to set it up for you. I'm not going to make you go through the whole thing. But I want you to understand it's one of those reasons why I walked away from this religion is when I came to understand some of the more popular preachings, how incorrect they were in their teaching and what it was about. All right, so we over the 5-minute mark. So let's get started. Welcome to the show. Please continue to share and the live and that sort of thing. Share the videos that I post after the lives. So many of you who have been with me for a while, you know that one of the reasons why I walked away from Christianity, one of the things that started, I'm not saying this is what made me walk away, but one of the things that started my journey is when I was 9 years old. And we got some hate. Mary Ellen gave us some hate on Facebook. Anyway, one of the reasons why I walked away is that started my questioning was Reverend Young was at Mount Zion. Well, no, what was the name of that church? Yeah, Zion Hill Baptist Church in Smyrna, Georgia. Reverend Young was doing a sermon. It was odd that I was paying attention because he was talking about money, right? And I was growing up at this stage of my life, the poverty setting. And I didn't know all the cause and effect that was going on in my life at the time. You know, my mother, when I was born, my mother was working at this company called Coates and Clark. So although we wasn't wealthy, we had food, we had furniture, the lights was always on, the water was always running. Christmas, we always got a bunch of gifts. School clothes, no problem. Going to school shopping in the summertime, right before school start. Go school shopping in the wintertime so that, you know, get some more clothes. We always had nice clothes. School supplies, never had a problem. Life was pretty good for a kid. Living in the projects and then moved to the, apartments, townhouse apartments, Kennesaw Village. Life was good. It's always about that money. But life was pretty good. And, I'm going to church with my grandmama and my mom and everybody. Life was good. But then, in around about 6 years old, when I turned about 6, the Coates and Clark closed down. But I didn't know this. Grand Rising Kevin, Grand Rising She. I didn't realize Coates and Clark closed down. So my mom's money got cut in half. And that's when she began working two and a half jobs to try to take care of me, my brother and sister. The food started getting a little thin. We had to move out of our apartment back to the projects. Things got a little tight around the house. Christmas wasn't Christmas no more. I thought Christmas was my fault because I was believing in Santa Claus. I thought I was acting up. It was a problem with me. I wasn't acting right. I wasn't getting on the list. I remember all this vividly as a 9-year-old kid. I'm 6 at this point, but I'm going through it. I'm wondering what's going on. So from 6 to 9, the having food in the house wasn't a everyday. She buy some food at the beginning of the month. We stretch it to around about the 15th, and then the rest of the month we go to grandma's house to eat. That was life. Wintertime came, you didn't get no new clothes. You better whatever you got. When you got bought your clothes in the summer, you got to plan for the whole year. We didn't have furniture. We had our beds. That was it. And that living room furniture. So 6 to 9, we was poor. I didn't like it. We were poor. We were poor of the poor. We went below low income to poor. So Reverend Young is preaching about wealth. He does the parable, he talks about the young rich ruler. And that's where he said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle for a rich man to go into heaven, and all rich people go to hell, so stop trying to be rich. That bothered me. That started my questioning of the Bible. And in that questioning of the Bible, I remember the first time I read the Bible from front to back, I was 11 years old. I decided I was going to sit there the whole summer and read the Bible. Grand Rising Renee. So that whole summer, I read the Bible front to back. Every day, wake up, I read like until I got so tired of reading. Front to back, all something. 11-year, 12-year-old something. Read the Bible front to back. 13, read the Bible front to back. 14, 15. Every summer until I graduated high school, I read even actually that summer after graduation, I read the Bible front to back. A lot of questions. And I would question pastors about it all the time. That was pretty much my journey. Started going to the library, getting research information, all that stuff. Learned about the Library of Congress, started asking, getting information from them, all kinds of stuff. Well, there were certain passages in the Bible that was quoted quite often. And so those passages that were quoted quite often, of course, I went and did more research and study on those than almost anything else, because this is the passages that we are believing on. This is the thing that's, giving us this faith. And because I never wanted to be poor again, Romans 8, 18 to 39 was something that I used to hold tight. Yeah, used to hold tight. That's interesting, because that's not what the Bible says. What are you talking about? What it doesn't say, John? That is easier for a rich man to go through the avenue than that rich people go to hell. No, it don't say that. I learned that. If that's what you're talking about, yeah. It doesn't say that rich people all go to hell. Actually, I learned later on that the wealthier you were in those days, they believed that your wealth made you closer to God. I mean, that meant that you were more righteous. And that's what the Israelite Hebrew teachings were of the Old Testament. And to a certain degree, that was still the teachings in the New Testament and the mentality. That is still the teachings in the mentality. That's why it's used as parables. When you look at the story of the talents. And see, that's what I'm saying. I focus on those stories of the talents. Oh, the one who turned 5 bags into 10 bags. When the master said you are a good servant, he took the talents from the one who had 1 bag and gave it to the one who had made the 5 into 10. So the better you do with the money, the more money you get. And it comes out of the ones who don't know how to handle money. And we know that's how life works. We know life works that way. So I was like, all right, so I can be wealthy. I just got to know how to not live and not love and cherish the wealth and the power more so than I love this God. All right. So I did realize that, but most Christians, especially back then, they didn't know that. And even still today, a lot of them don't know that. But Romans 8 was one of those that you will hear. Y'all bear with me. Let me act like a pastor. Y'all bear with me now. It's one of those that you have heard certain aspects of this one and not truly know what he's talking about. So let me give you Grand Rising Dwayne and Nita, Grand Rising. Boy, I'm telling you, I might need to go to Texas. The Texas crew is growing on this channel. Texas is the most popular state for this channel. I don't know why. Oh, maybe it's the hat. So let me go ahead and give you a couple of sayings, a couple of verses that comes out of from 18. Now you really got to read from 18 down all the way down to 39 to get the gist of it, to really understand what it's saying. But tell me if this sounds familiar to you. Where's that one verse? Verse 28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Who knew that? Who remember that one? Who know how popular that one is? Where's that other one at? 31. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, Who can be against us? Where's another one? 37. No, let me start with 36. 36. As it is written, for your sake we face death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. But here's the 37. No, in all things we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. North Carolina, Grand Rising, Jacques, Grand Rising, Debbie, Michelle, Echo, Michael. Yeah, y'all remember them verses, don't y'all? Y'all remember them verses? That's them Lucky Charm verses. That's those verses that when a preacher preached these without understanding the context of what the hell he's talking about, that it creates this mentality in Christians that God is like a Lucky Charm and they ain't got to do shit. You see, but the worst part about it is that it ain't got nothing to do with something like you getting fired from your job. Well, God got a plan for you because no weapon shall be formed against you, or all things work for the good of those who love the Lord. Y'all know that one. Y'all know that one. 28, all things work for the good of those who love him. That's not what Paul was talking about in this one. That actually has nothing to do with what's going on in your daily life. And there's one reason why I had to walk away from this book, because I realized that the people teaching this book don't even know this book. The people who believe in this book don't even understand this book. And so I had to walk away from those organizations because I realized that they don't even know what they talk about. And then, of course, other things made me walk away from the book completely. Because even though I understand what this book is saying, what this part of this book is saying, it still didn't jive with the rest of life. It doesn't jive with logic. You literally have to suspend your logic to accept this book. My problem isn't what Jesus did, but how the system of Caesar changed the narrative. How can Caesar change the narrative when Caesar created the narrative? You understand what I'm saying, John? There is no New Testament writings that were written by some Israelite people, some Hebrew people. This book was written like there were Hellenistic Jews. So let me clarify that. There were Hellenistic Jews who wrote it, but this was not written because of some dude walking around teaching people. This was written because Vespasian orchestrated it to be written. The Flavians orchestrated this to be written. So therefore, Caesar didn't change it. Caesar created it. Now, was there borrowing from other thought processes? Yes. And that's a whole nother video that I'm gonna do later. We can talk about it here, but I'm gonna do a short one later. Trying to make the teachings of this book be African, and then they changed it and misused it is bullshit. That's low vibration. But here's the thing about these verses. When you read the whole thing, at least from 18 down to 39, what you'll realize is that what this is talking about is apocalyptic writing. You recognize that this is Paul's writing. What's attributed to Paul. Paul's writings are apocalyptic, right? Paul thought that before he died, this Jesus was going to come back. And how do you know? What does the Bible itself says about a false prophet? How can you tell a false prophet? When they make a prophecy and it don't happen. Jesus never sat at a table with Caesar to create this capitalistic society we live in. Jesus never sat, because the Jesus of the Bible never existed, my guy. That's the part that you gotta, when you realize that the Jesus of the Bible never existed, then of course Jesus never sat at the table with Caesar. And if we were a socialist system, what system you want? What system do you want? You want communist? You want socialism? You want to go back to bartering, which can never happen? That's not going to happen either. Because there still will be a system of value. There was still a system of value there. Capitalism has been is ingrained in every type of social system. Please tell me what's the better system. If you got one, let me know. But Jesus didn't sit nowhere. Just like half these letters, they claim that Paul wrote. Paul didn't write shit. And then Paul is writing something based on somebody he never met. Never met. But understanding that most of Paul's writings were apocalyptic writings, this is an apocalyptic verse in Romans. This is actually talking about how that the people who believe in this Jesus will suffer. You're going to suffer under Rome. You're going to suffer. But don't worry, because at the end of all of your suffering, you will gain your freedom in heaven with Jesus. That this is an afterlife deal. So when he says that all things work for the good of those who love him, when he says that if God is for us, then who can be against us? That we are more than conquerors. What he's talking about is the fact that at the end of the times, when Jesus intercedes on your behalf, you can find part of that thought process in verse 34, where it says, who then is the one who condemns? No one. Jesus Christ, who died, more than that, who was raised to life, is at the right hand of God and is also interceding for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? So this is end time prophecy here. This is end time talk. But according to Paul, it's supposed to have happened before he died. It didn't happen. So all of it is bullshit. Even if a person who believes in the Bible, and that's one of the things that happened. When I read this and I started understanding that this was end time prophecies, I started realizing that, okay, but if the prophecy didn't come true, then that would make Paul's writings false. He would make him a false prophet. So why should I trust him? And then this Lucky Charm shit, all things work for the good. I started realizing that no, things work for the good when you decide to put forth the effort and the energy to do so. When you think through it, when you start to understand the Hermetic laws, that's when all things work for the good, but for the good of those who know themselves and understand how the powers of the universe work. What is going to say? Capitalism is based on the Viking mentality. He who has the best weaponry owns and rules all. World War III will be for the continent of Africa. I do think that there will be an economic warfare or maybe even physical warfare for the continent of Africa. I don't think it's going to happen in a way that most people think it will. There's not going to be like an invasion of Africa. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. World War III will be an economic war where we're trying to woo. This is like Cinderella still trying to woo Africa. But as far as capitalism being based on the Viking mentality, who has the best weaponry owns all the rules. How you figure? That doesn't make in today's time. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense in today's time. Switzerland, incredibly powerful country with no army. but incredibly powerful because they controlling a lot of the money. China realized that military power is not the way to control the world. So they will become more and more of an economic power. What do you want? Capitalism? What kind of system you want? What system is better? Christopher said, let's look at our lives right now and forget the lie. Oh, you know what? I forgot. I can do this now. I completely forgot I can do this. Let's look at our lives right now and forget the lies and rumors of the past. That would be nice if we can get rid of religion. If we can get rid of religion, that we can do that. But since people are basing their lives on this religion, we can't. And we are walking away from it. And that's what this channel is about. So there's that part. That's what the channel is about. Now, okay, this is your first time on this channel, John? Because what we do, if you want to base an argument, you gotta get some information. You can't just say you have to study history. We do details here. We don't do vague stuff. That is not true, Christopher. The truth is that nobody living now never knew squat about anybody back then. Actually, we know quite a lot about different people in the past because they kept good records. So that would be incorrect. We know quite a lot about the beginnings of the Flavian dynasty because of records. We know at least what people thought. Oh, what did Lucky say? Howbeit every nation made gods of their own and put them in the houses of the highest places, which the Samaritans had made. Every nation in their cities wherein they dwell. Yeah. I don't know the purpose of why you said that one, but all you're really saying is that everybody had their own God. And these people believed they were henotheistic back then when 2 Kings was written. So they accepted that all these gods existed. Yes, China does have the largest man-for-man army. China fighting America is a stalemate for the most part. It's going to be a stalemate. That's why it's one of the reasons why it's not going to happen. You are so right. Some people alarm clock has not rung yet. It has not. Grand Rising Brian Bay. So back to my story. I don't mind the little segues. But how many, now, I don't know if anybody, did y'all respond as far as saying that, do y'all remember those scriptures when you were in church, when you were a Christian? Do you remember those? Do you remember people utilize that or even still using that today? Do y'all remember those? Oh, Brian gotta be back. Something's happening in South Africa. Okay, so therein lies the difference, Christopher. He said, if I talk about, you talking about the telephone game. If you talk about me then, what does it mean? Will the same thing come back to me? No, it's going to be different, but that's just talking. But what was inscribed on the walls in Kemet? What was inscribed on hundreds of thousands of clay tablets throughout the Levant? The statues that are found, the seals, cylinder seals, the steles, those, they say what they say. Doesn't matter. They say what they say. They're telling us what people thought back then. So they say what they say. When you look at the writings of Josephus, because we had copies of it, it says what it says. Don't have the original, but based on the copies, it says what it says. Based on the original writings of Irenaeus and other people like that, what they said about the Marcions and other, we know what the Orthodox Christians thought about the Marcions. So it's taking those things into context. Do we know a lot about the Marcions? No, but we know what they thought about them. When you look at the writings at Nag Hammadi, because they haven't been touched for over 1,000 years, we know what those people thought in and around 2nd, 3rd century Christianity. Well, some might be 1st century too, but 1st, 2nd, 3rd century Christianity. We know what they thought in that region. That's different from the telephone game, because you have those writings, those monuments, those inscriptions. Can't change it. So that's why I say we do know quite a bit about them. We can look at the animal bones and see what type of lifestyle they were living. We can look at their industry systems. So we know a lot about the past. And what we do know is there's very little evidence there's no evidence of Jesus ever existed. We know that for damn sure. Okay, y'all, some of y'all remember those scriptures? I'm sorry. Christopher, I hope Christopher is joking, y'all. You being facetious. He gotta be. You can't go from saying we don't know squat about the people back then to saying giants wrote those. That's funny. No historical document is more accurate than the Hebrew Torah Bible. Aaron. Aaron. You joking, right? You're absolutely joking. That is one of the most historically inaccurate books that has ever been written. That book is so historically inaccurate. I can't even think of what is a everything in that book that supposedly happened prior to 500 BCE is inaccurate. Everything. And that's the part. Charles said, believers' problem is that they don't realize every religion can be researched. And it has been researched and it's been found lacking. Who been crucified? Who been nailed to a cross? Who been a spike put up their back? I mean, literally. Don't come with the metaphor. Who literally is being crucified to this day? Who? Christians ain't. Who? Who's been crucified? Ain't seen nobody being crucified. You ain't seen nobody being crucified. Man, get off with that nonsense. That's like when people tell me, "Well, we still slaves just today, like our ancestors." Bullshit. Today's what you would call slavery today is nothing compared to what it's an insult to our ancestors. For those of us who actually accept that our ancestors were enslaved in this country, it is an insult to our ancestors to accept when somebody says, "Oh man, slavery, we still enslaved today." No, bro, that's different. It's not even comparable. But if you learn Sumerian, there is one God who appeared separately. Who is the one God that appeared separately? Grand Rising McQueen. No, bro. So, yeah, but who is the one guy? What one guy you talking about? In the street, innocent people are still being slaughtered. That is not being crucified. That is not comparable to the control that the Roman government had, the control that the Zulu government had, the control that the Greek governments had. That is not comparable to the control that other governments had and their ability to just beat the shit out of you and nail you or stone the hell out of you. Who's being slaughtered in the streets? Where? This over exaggeration of what's going on is, I find amazing, because we want to make it seem like it's something that is not. The majority of people who die are killed by people who look just like them. Meaning, the majority of Caucasians who die are killed by Caucasians. The majority of people of color who die are killed by other people of color who look more like them. Meaning that if I'm black, I live amongst more black people, it's more likely I'll get killed by another black person. If I'm white, I would live more amongst more white people, so it's more likely that I get killed by white people. Asians get killed by Asians. Latinos get and Hispanics get killed by Hispanics. In Norway, damn near all the murders that happened by a Caucasian person to another Caucasian person. So who we getting slaughtered in the streets? And you're comparing that to crucifixions, that we're being crucified for. What we're being crucified for? But LeQuinn is right about this one. Basically, all the Abrahamic religions are based off of Sumerian tablets. That is the basis of their story, especially throughout Genesis. It is based on the Sumerian stories. And many of the ideas going in through Exodus and everything else is based on the Sumerian teachings. And right, their son story, Debbie said, what do they? We are crucifying ourselves to them by following their ways with cigarettes, beer, churches, etc. Maybe it's just a choice of words that y'all are using. But when you say crucify, you can't. And maybe it's just me. Like I've been in combat before. So when I hear athletes talking about, I'm going to battle, we went to war together, that shit pissed me off. Because I'm like, you fuckers don't know what war is, right? So when we say we're crucifying ourselves, no, do you know what crucifixion is? Because if you're overindulging in cigarettes, beers, and churches and stuff, that's not crucifying. You're harming yourself. But crucifixion is an instant, some shit that happens right then immediately that creates a tremendous amount of pain and suffering. No. And yes, the practice of crucifixion is well before Christianity. Well before Christianity came around. Oh shit, y'all going faster than I can. Which ones was Inanna, Enlil, Erskine, Marduk, Anu? There's about 20. Yeah, I'm waiting for them to say who is this one god that the Sumerians, then all other gods came out of this, that all the rest of the pantheon came out of. I don't think they ever said it. No, I understand it's your opinion, and everybody is entitled to their own opinion. Um, but I think when you use a certain word to describe something that's not as grievous as it is, it loses its luster. You know what I'm saying? You know, like if I was an NBA athlete, I would never say we went to war. I'd be like, nah, man, we played hard. We as a team, we went at each other, but we went to war. Grand Rising Keith, welcome to the show. Please follow the channel. I appreciate it. Okay. Aaron, what historical facts of Israel? I'm not saying that there are a lot. You have to be specific to say what historical facts. So the Merneptah Stele, which is the first mention of an Israelite, that's what, 1200, 1400 BC, I believe, 1400 BC. So prior to that, that land has been conquered by different people, and none of them ever mentioned conquering Israelites or Israelites fighting them or that community existing. Yet they mention other communities that exist. So our first known existence of an Israelite is around between 14 and 1200 BC. So I give them that they existed at that time frame, but not beforehand. We do know that worshippers of the Aten moved into the Levant around the 1400s. So I think the Merneptah Stele might be in 1200s BC, because the Aten people was 1400 BC. And then we know the Sea people defeated the Kemetic armies in the Levant in and around that, around 1000 BC, 900 BC, which was the beginning, so around 1200 BC, right after that. So what you're talking about is, so you don't have any historical relics that demonstrate Moses, Abraham. Your timeline for Joshua conquering Jericho doesn't fit the archaeology that we know of Jericho. We knew Jericho had walls, but then for the time frame that Joshua would have went into Jericho, that was a time frame where there were no walls in Jericho. That they had already been knocked down in the 1500s BCE, and they weren't rebuilt until around 900 BCE. So Joshua, according to the story, would have been around 1200 BC, but Jericho didn't have walls. So it don't fit. It don't fit. But what are your artifacts? The all-knowing God should and would have been more clear with his important instructions. The information that we have, as well as the interpretation, are all over the map, exactly, and absolutely no understanding whatsoever. If this was this guy, he was unclear as hell. Now, if you're saying Anu was that primary god, that's not how the Sumerian pantheon worked. Anu and Namu were the two creators. It was two. It was never one. It was Anu and Namu. Am I saying the Namu right? Yes, Namu. I have a whole chart of that. But Anu and Namu was the waters below. Anu is the sky above. Those two got together and they created everything else. But it took those two to create. The Sumerians never had a one god that they gave information about. They had one God. That all. Now in the Indus religion, Brahma was the one God, and all things came out from that. In the true Kemetic, the oldest Kemetic, the Ogdod was the one entity, and all things came out of that. Ra, but it was existing in a spiritual plane, and then Ra was the physical embodiment of the Ogdod out of the cosmic egg. So I think in Ifa or Mare is the one God, and all others came out of that. But definitely in the later on in the Kemetic, the Akhten was the one God. But in Sumerian, it never had a one God. There was always a two. Yep, made 2 days in a way, Kemp. That's what's up. I don't turn into salt. What? I don't know what that means. We have to be careful about the unseen. Guess you're related to Lot's wife turning to salt because she looked back. To believe that you're a slave today or you can't make it today is an insult to your own intelligence. You don't realize how great you have it and how great you are. Exactly the way. Do you have hurdles to overcome? Sure. Is it fair? No. But if you're in any industrialized country, you can grow, you can change the way things are for you. There was a saying in that movie, A Knight's Tale, that I always liked. You can change your stars. Grand Rising Surah. Saran, sorry. And you're right about this one, Chris Charles. I believe we'll never accept fact because their very being is fictional. What did you say? But we gotta have some facts. I still haven't seen. You still haven't told me what is this Israelite historical fact, archaeological facts. I need your facts. What's your facts that makes this Bible the most historically accurate book? It's not. Right, but can that even happen? We're told we won't ever understand the mind of God. So how are you supposed to understand a plan and the instructions when you can't even understand the things? And that's the, you know what, LaQuinn, that's what I'm talking about. The God that they write in these books, flip flop all over the place, got so many human qualities, jealousy, anger, all these different things, do all this bullshit. And this God changes with every cultural change. So how is it can anybody ever understand the mind of this God? This is why I like the Hermetics. This is why I like the Kabbalion. These are the Hermetic laws. Hey man, make it happen. It's all about what you do with it. It ain't got nothing to do with some deity's plan for you. You create the plan yourself by getting into, and this is why I also like the Tao, getting into the flow of the natural energies of the universe. And Lola said it great. All Abrahamic religion programs the people to think and act like slaves, and all of them do. The only ones who don't act like slaves but are still in this religion are the ones who are controlling the religion, because they know exactly what they're doing, controlling the religion and controlling the people. Amen. Echo said Ea or Enki was top dog if there ever was any, but Anu and Enlil were up there with him from what I recall. So you got mind you, the Sumerian story was told for 3,000 years. So you're going to have some differences in there. Let me grab a little chart. Let's make sure I say it right. So at first you have Anu and Namu, right? Anu and Namu created or birthed out Enki, right? Or Ea, birthed out Ea. So Anu and Namu were already there before them too. That's one of the stories based on the people who worship Ea or Enki. Right? But Anu and Namu also birthed out Adad or Ishtar. They also, where is it? I'm gonna do that. But Anu and Kia, who is Anu's sister, Kia is Anu's sister, supposedly, when you get to a different level of it, they birthed out Enlil. Enlil was supposed to be the royalty. Enki was not royalty. He was considered by most to be, because Kia collect the card. He was supposed to be Anu's royal wife, whereas Namu was just a mother goddess and she had Ea. Later, they combined Ea and Enki together, but Enki also was supposed to have a different mama than Namu. I mean, than Namu as well, depending upon what city state you was looking at. But it's all crazy because you're having sex with your daughter, your granddaughter, they have sex with their mama, their aunties, all over the place. But when you're telling a story for 3,000 years and different city states venerate different gods, the stories get changed up. So it's really hard to figure out who is who really. Because is Enki and Ea the same? No. The Akkadians called him Ea. And then they merged Ea and Enki from the Sumerians. So, but like I said, Ki was supposed to be a royalty, so that's why that's why Enki becomes, Enlil becomes the Sultan in the Sumerian, which means the administrator, because he inherited kingship over the earth. And it was supposed to change, but he didn't want to give it up. And it was supposed to go to Marduk. And then that's what started the war between Enlil and Marduk, who is also, is weird. Enlil is El, but then Enlil also ends up becoming Yahweh, who is a son of El in the Babylonians. And then Marduk is also Baal, who fights Yahweh, and they're supposed to be brothers. So Baal is sometimes Enlil, sometimes Enki, then sometimes Marduk. But since they're supposed to be brothers, it's most likely that Baal is supposed to be Enki, while Yahweh, who is also Enlil, and somehow Enlil is also El. And this is the Canaanite pathway. So and when they try to marry up the Canaanite and the Sumerian, you see what I'm saying? It's a lot of crazy. But for these 300 years, this is who they were. For these 300 years, this is who they were. It just kept changing. Amun-Ra, if the letter J didn't exist, how is the word like Jesus, Jude, Judah, John? Well, it's because of the translations. The only one that's actually really screwed up is the Jesus one. The other ones make somewhat sense, right? Like Yahushua, Yahuda. Those got translated properly in English. Jesus never got translated properly in English. Jesus should have been Joshua, is what Jesus should be. It should have never became Jesus. That was keeping the Greeks didn't have a proper translation for Joshua or Yahshua. So they translated it into Ius. And then the Latin translated into Ius. Yeah, Ius. No, Isus. And then the Latin translated it to Ius. The authorized King James Version still says Ius. And then when the letter J came out, they just put the Jesus on that from the Isus, from the Latin Isus, or the Greek Isus, sorry. From the Greek Isus. Or I'm mixing those two up. Latin or Greek, one of them go Ius, one go Isus. And they just put a J on there when the J came out. Instead of going to the direct Aramaic to English, which would be Joshua. It would have been Joshua. Grand Rising, Big Head, Ramsey. Ramsey still ain't. I think Ramsey don't want me to meet his child, y'all, because I still ain't got my invitation to come down to the South Side. And I can make one trip out of it. I can come down there. I can see John at Groovy Blues, and then see the baby. See, he ain't trying to be my friend. Sounds like, and let me put him up there. So this joke will be pissing me off. Sounds like all these stories and beliefs have some type of incest in them. It seems that they're always some type of family. Yeah, well, yeah, because so people back then didn't understand that all that incest creates diseases. So they thought keeping the bloodline, the family bloodline, was more important. Yeah, you said that Asherah was the wife of Yahweh, but sometimes I hear that Asherah was the wife of El. This is true. Yeah, both of them. I know. It's relative to who you're talking about and when. So when in the Canaanite religion, Yahweh wife is Asherah. When the Israelites converted Yahweh into El later on, and when they mixed El and Yahweh together, El had the wife, then El's wife was Asherah. So in the Babylonian story, Yahweh's wife is Asherah. So the Canaanite story is Yahweh's wife is Asherah. When the Israelites convert Yahweh and El to be one being, his wife then becomes El. He becomes El, and his wife becomes Asherah. So we're talking like hundreds of years in time that is different. Here's what's funny. Hey, Taquan, let me tell you a secret. Masons don't teach this. Masons don't teach anything about El and Asherah and Yahweh and Baal and the Sumerians. Masons don't teach anything like that. Masons teach about Solomon, Hiram Abiff, Jesus. Okay, that's what they teach about. In the American and the European ones. But if you go to a Masonic lodge that's ran by Muslims, guess what they teach about? Allah. Ooh. They use Allah as their way of understanding the principles of Masonry. So you have no idea what you're talking about. They changed everything so they can confuse everyone. Who is they? Who is the they? And you say Yehuda is the Yiddish language. I don't know about Yiddish, but I know it's ancient Hebrew, what we call ancient Hebrew. You talk about the Bible, but the Catholics corrupted it and whitewashed the Bible. The Bible was corrupt from the day that it was first written. From the moment that the Flavian dynasty first commissioned for the Bible to be written, or the New Testament to be written, it was already corrupt. What are you talking about? It's corrupt in its creation. It was created in order to make a subdued version of Judaism, because Judaism was causing disruptions in the Roman Empire. When was it ever pure? It has never been pure. You have no original writings. You have no proof of any of those people existing. When was it ever perfect? It always had slavery in it. It always had genocide in it. It always subjugated women. When was it pure? You're saying Joshua bar Yosef, right? Joshua, son of Joseph. That would be the Jesus character's actually name. Yehuda, that's Judah. That's Judas, right? That's Judas. So I'm not talking about the same person. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I could have sworn that that's his name. That's Judah. That means Judas. Or Judah, sorry. All right, in Islam, Jesus is Isa in Islam from Isus. Is Isus the Latin or the Greek? I think Isus is the Latin, right? No, Isus is the Greek, right? And Ius is the Latin. What the man say? I'm gonna put your business on Front Street since you put it. The baby is Strider, since he was born premature. Doctor told us to wait at least 2 months before bringing him around different people, but trust me, you're among my top five for him to be top five. I don't know what Strider means, but I'm gonna look it up. What the hell? Top five? Top five? Oh, well, grandma, grandpa, me. Okay. All right. That better be the list. Grandma, grandpa, me. You taller than me? I don't care. Huh. Lucky, you're in South Africa? Are you in South Africa? I'm only asking because this guy, Brian B, he's in South Africa as well. I like people to be able to, there's possibilities of connecting. All right, but there's a place in South Africa called El Bethlehem in, I ain't even gonna try to say that because I'm gonna mess that up. There's a place in Georgia called Bethlehem. There's a place in Pennsylvania called Bethlehem. What's the point? When was it established as Bethlehem? I had a Hebrew Israelite try that on me one time. Oh, this is where it all happened because we got a place called Bethlehem here. I was like, man, that place was founded in like 18 or 17, whatever. Bethlehem is this. Hold on for a second. All right, I had to answer a text real quick. You know what? How many places in the world are called Bethlehem? There are 28 places in the world named Bethlehem. And America and South Africa, there's multiple places called Bethlehem. America has the highest number of places called Bethlehem, 18 of them. There's a Bethlehem in Sweden. There's one in New Zealand. There's a whole bunch of places called Bethlehem. There's a Bethlehem in Palestine, Sweden, New Zealand, the Netherlands, and Namibia. Namibia has a Bethlehem. Jamaica has a Bethlehem. In Germany, there's a Bethlehem. In South Africa, y'all got 3 places called Bethlehem. I wonder if they were called Bethlehem because when the Christians came there, they named the place Bethlehem. That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean that's where, when these stories were supposedly written, that's where they was happening, is in those places. That's some trickery bull BS right there. That's like when they try to say, oh, the Nile River was the Euphrates is the Mississippi River, and it's not. So, when was the city of Bethlehem established in South Africa? The town of Bethlehem was founded in 1864. Other sources claim 1869. Look at that. Ain't that something? In the 1800s, even the other ones were found in the 1800s. All in the 1800s. I don't think they are the same place. I think the Christians named it that. Right. The Roman Catholicism was actually they started to quell the Jewish revolt, and it stuck like an accident. The Romans didn't even know it would catch on like it did. There was no such thing as Roman Catholics when they first started quelling Jewish revolts. When they first started quelling the Jewish revolts, that actually happened during the reign. That was going on during the Greeks. The Greeks had the same problem with the Jewish people of having revolts. That's the whole, if you read the Maccabees, the War of the Jews. So we're talking hundreds of years before the Romans even took over. There were Jewish revolts in the Greek Empire. When the Romans defeated the Greeks and took over, there were still Jewish revolts under the reign of Caesar Augustus, and so on and so forth, all the way up to Nero. There were still Jewish revolts. It was the Flavian dynasty that kind of quelled it down enough, but they also decided to change the story and create Christianity. So they've been having those long before that. Amon-Ra, why do they eat Jesus' body and drink his blood? Because it's a blood cult. It's a cannibalistic blood cult. All throughout the Old Testament, New Testament, there always has to be the shedding of blood for atonement. And so when Jesus was created, his blood had to be shed for the atonement of people, because that's the way of this deity, is blood atonement. Where Jacob built his house. Where did he build? Jacob, well, Jacob didn't exist, first of all, but Jacob was, that was in the Levant, in Canaan. And then later he moved to Egypt and died in Egypt. And then requested that his bones be taken back to where Abraham was supposedly buried, Yeah, in the was he bought the land from a Hittite or somebody like that. This is a good one. How come you're an unbeliever but know that the Holy Spirit is a female? The Holy Spirit, according to this religion, because I study ancient religions, I know a lot about the Sumerian religion, but I don't participate in it. I don't believe the Sumerian religion. I just study it. It's like something you study. You can study something and know something about it without having to believe in it. So being a believer or unbeliever has nothing to do with the knowledge that you have about something. You know what I'm saying? It's like I could be, I could I play at the NBA level? No. Do I believe that I could coach at the NBA level? Yes, because I know that much about the game, right? The Holy Spirit is replacing the idea of a Trinity has been around much longer than Christianity or any of the Abrahamic religions. What the Abrahamic religions and really Christianity replaced, and I can't say, let me not say the Abrahamic religion, let me stop that. The ancient Hebrew had the Trinity, the Mother, the Father, and the Son. They were waiting for the Messiah Son. They're still waiting for the Messiah Son. And then once Hezekiah, Josiah, and Ezra got their hands on it, they got rid of the mother, i.e. Asher. Then the Christians replaced the mother, and they just called it the Spirit of God. Then the Christians replaced the Spirit of God that the Jewish people, the Israelites and Israelite and Hebrew people had with this Holy Spirit, and made it into just a spirit instead of being the mother, or for what I would say, the feminine energy. But that's just understanding the cultures who wrote and what they believe. I don't necessarily believe what they believe. Is a church carved into a rock in Ethiopia? Is that the one that I did a video about? When the Axiom Empire converted over to Christianity, there's a church that's built inside of a rock mountain face. They say they built it from the inside out. It's like dangerous as hell to get there. But that was after 330 BCE. I mean, 330 AD or CE. But that's 4th century when that was built. Well, it began being built during the 4th century, but it was built throughout the 4th and 5th century. Because they're vampires. Yeah, they have to, it's a blood cult. I got a whole nother blood cult video that I plan on doing today that demonstrates their blood cult, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So even the God of the Bible gave his only begotten Son because he so loved the world, but then tell us not to be of the world. Right, schizophrenic as hell. And that's and one of the reasons why he had to give his only son, because they want to be able to make connections with the Old Testament. You see, when Josephus began these writings, and Philo and Herod, you have the Herod, I forget which Herod it was, not the first Herod, it's a later Herod, like a grandson. They had to, in order to convert the Jewish people into believing that this Messiah has already come and it is a peaceful Messiah, they had to connect it to their old story. They had to be that Old Testament connection. So when you already know the story of Abraham and Isaac, then you write your new story to mimic that. You already know the stories that they tell about Moses, so you write your story, you write your Jesus to mimic some Moses stuff. So you let Jesus mimic what the Jewish people already knew, already believe rather, and then that way it's easier for them to believe it. Grand Rising Big Man. Established in 50. What, this church? Well, that's not the same church. That can't be the same one. I'm sorry. I did the video on. What church? Bite Lamb created during the kingdom of the accident. Bite? Nope. Okay, I don't think you. Let me see. Your spelling might be off, my guy. All I get coming up with is some beer. So, when did the Axiom Empire? Right now, I'm saying the X-Men Empire, the Axiom Empire. The Axiom Empire didn't start to 1500 to 150 BC, but the Axiom Empire was not Christian at that time frame. They were of multiple different groups and had different indigenous religions. Christianity didn't come to the Axiom Empire until 300 BCE, and they actually converted fundamentally in 300 BCE. Or 300, yeah, BC. I mean CE, sorry. And they weren't completely converted. They started their conversion around 330 is when a bishop from a priest from the Coptic church in Egypt came down and started teaching and converting. They weren't fully converted until around 400 CE. So I don't know. That church wasn't built into that church that was built into the walls wasn't built until the Common Era, not before the Common Era. Grand Rising Judah. Yeah, the Trinity is old. Oh, I got far behind y'all. The Catholic replaced it. What proof of that do you have, sir? Thomas Williams is saying that the Catholics replaced what and when, and how do you know? Look, damn near every city after the Roman Empire that's named Bethlehem was because it was named in places where Christians conquered. Every last one of them. Yeah. There you go. You saw it ended around 960? Mm-hmm. Yeah, about 2 weeks, maybe 2 weeks ago, I did a video about that church being built in the wall in the rocks. So it's in the CE era. It's in the Common Era. Thomas, you didn't read the name of the channel. I don't know if this is your first time here, Tom, but I can't be stiff all the time. I make jokes and stuff, so don't take anything personal. But no, this is why I left religion with Coach Rand. So I do not believe that this Jesus character did any miracles or rose from the dead, because he is not a historical figure. He's not a real being. The biblical version. There were people named Yeshua who revolted or was causing problems, but he didn't do any miracles. There's not only a lag, but I am behind in y'all comments. But they stole everything at the end. You got to have some proof that these people, because when you look at all the scraps that they have of these so-called gospels of Jesus, none of them are written at the time frame of Jesus. They're all written decades or centuries after, or a century after. Nobody recorded this guy during that time frame. No historian during his lifetime recorded this guy. That would be like Martin Luther King did all the shit he did, but now we're writing about it. And that's why it's bullshit. If Jesus didn't die and rise from the dead, why did they name the time after him? Because the government was in control. The government was in control. And this is what you got to understand. When did we switch to in the year of our Lord, the AD? When did the AD, Anno Domini, come into play? If I'm correct, and I'm going to check, but I'm going to say it off the dome first. It is at the advent of the Gregorian calendar that we switched to AD. So during all time before that, no. When did the calendar switch to AD? That thing say add. But no, it got it right. But in October of 1582 is when we switched to replace the Julian calendar. Nope, my bad. The dating system was devised in 525 by Dionysius. I ain't gonna say his name, Exiguus, but was not widely used until the 9th century, which would be in the 800s. Traditionally, English followers Latin used the AD abbreviation. That was also found after the year. So 525 is when we first started it, but it still took a couple of hundred years for it to become mainstream. So we would not, so you got to think these are Christians who are in control of Europe who are doing this. So it's 525 before the AD system came into play. Yep. Serapis from 350 to 284 was a savior cult because Serapis is based off of Apep, Asar, or Osiris, and Zeus. But those are the kind of things that we have to think about. Like as a child, and even as a young adult, I never thought about when we switched over to the, Anno Domini. That wasn't something that happened right after Jesus. That was something that happened, supposedly 500 years plus after Jesus. It is fully in the Western culture at that time. Because remember, in 381, the Emperor Theodosius forced and made Christianity the only religion of the Roman Empire. So at that time frame, you got to look at almost the entirety of Europe and the Mediterranean were forced to be Christian. And then almost 200 years later, they changed how they calculate time based on the Jesus character. Have you heard of Simeon Tokyo? I haven't. I do like putting stuff up like that one because people may want to go research it. Simeon Tokyo. Is that a movie? Why got an IMDb comes up? Oh, I guess somebody made a documentary on it. I have to look that up later. Nothing quick came up. Hebrew Israelites were not in control of the Romans, where still are. What? You got to rephrase that. If you're using talking text, man, that talking text will mess you up. Mm-mm. And I like this statement. For thousands of years, there was no date to be written down. No one gave a shit. They got up and down. Their work milked their cows. Well, it's kind of like today. We have our calendar, our year, this 2023, right? But the Ethiopians, if you're in their country, they're in a different year. I think they're 15 years behind our year from when they started counting. In the China, I think they're in year 5,000 something. The Jewish culture is in year 6,000 something. But for business sake and for international dealings, the majority of the world will do 2023, but in country they'll do some other date. They have their own calendars. So even back then, people had their own calendars, and most of it was based on the reigns of kings. Because they would say, like, in the year of King, in the year of Darius the Great, in the year of Artaxerxes, in the year of Leonidas. How do you explain people having sleep paralysis, believers and non-believers calling Jesus and paralysis stop? Because it's the power of your mind. It's the power of your mind. Like I don't get sick anymore, but even when I have a sinus infection, I tell my body what it's going to do and it doesn't. For a brief moment in time, I did CRA work, and that's clinical research associate. In the clinical research, when there's a double blind and half the people are given placebos, you have to account for 70% of those people who take the placebo having the same effect as the people who take the medicine because of their belief in what they're taking and that they are supposed to get the results. So placebo is why people can get rid of their paralysis. They have these paralysis issues. There was this doctor. He was a chiropractor, I think. I gotta remember his name so I can do a video about that. And he wrote a book too. He had an accident, broke his spine. The surgeons told him he would never walk again. They wanted to do all these other surgeries and all this other stuff. But he went through a process of meditation and physical therapy. And in his mind, according to his book, in his mind, he would meditate and see his spine being put back together. And it was like 6 months later, he walked into the doctor's office. It's all the power of your mind. Serapis look like Jesus too. If you look at pictures of Ptolemy the First and Zeus, they look the same. I ain't never heard of this dude, but I'll research it. I can't say yes or no to it, but that was happening and it's not widely known. I find that interesting. Ooh. Where there is much smoke, there is fire. People don't submit to persecution and mass slaughter for what they know is a lie. I mean, would you? Jesus is real and rose, humble, out and asked. So did you know that a few years ago, the Ethiopians believe that they have the Ark of the Covenant in front of this church, right? At this church. And there's only one person can go in there. The people believe that this is there. So 80 people stood in front of it when this militia came to take this church. The militia slaughtered all 80 people because they believed in this, right? The problem with your statement is people don't submit to mass persecution for what they know is a lie. If you know it is a lie, the people who don't believe that that ark is there, they weren't the ones showing up. It's the people who believe in it that will allow themselves to be persecuted and murdered. So the premise of your statement is already messed up. It's messed up and it's dishonest, right? Actually, because you're saying that non-believers would submit themselves to persecution and mass murder. Non-believers don't submit themselves to persecution and mass murder. So that throws off your whole statement right there. You see how that don't work? Mr. Johnson, was that murmur? You got two M's in there. I don't know if that's supposed to be pronounced differently. Murmur. But you see how that don't work? But yes, placebo. You might laugh at the power of your mind, but I will tell you this: the majority of things that you've had accomplished in your life is because you mentally decided and emotionally decided it was going to be. You know, the world is ran on different law systems, land-based laws and sea and water-based laws that run shit. Yeah. The whole world is not functioning the same. Yeah. And then he's 50 and he's not been sick. I've had minor things as well, but I decide what this body's going to be and what's going to happen. Have you had sleep paralysis? No. I've never had sleep paralysis. Just like I refused the vaccine, and before they named it, before they said COVID was in America, I know that the person that I was living with had COVID. And I told them, I'm not getting it. And I didn't isolate myself or nothing. And guess what I didn't get? COVID or her upper respiratory infection. Especially then, because I was meatless like a champ. All right, what are you saying? You're not taking into account the scale and non-locality of said event. What said event? When I was doing CRA work, the we brought in people who had diseases. And nobody who was there to eyewitness any of the accounts of Jesus wrote about it. And if people truly understood how to use positive thoughts, many of the things that you deal with, you would never deal with. This is like when we did the Zoroastrian, when we talked about Zoroastrianism, where they do good thoughts equal good words equal good deeds, right? The more you're focused on things like that, the more positive things happen in your life. It is all a process of the will. And many people fall prey to the will of others. And what do you believe? I don't believe that there's some deity manipulating everybody's life and that any of these religious books are right. I believe in the universal laws, and you follow those universal laws. Who created us? I have no idea. Nobody knows who created us. You only believe. People believe certain things, but you give me some facts. I know that scientists have said, they've said that there are certain DNA, parts of our DNA that look like it was infused into our DNA. It doesn't look like it occurred naturally through adaptation. Does that mean aliens did it? Doesn't mean aliens did it. Could have been a pre-existing advanced civilization before the last ice age, or the last ice age before that ice age, or the ice age before that ice age, or whatever, early event that happened on Earth that destroyed whatever previous civilizations were existing. I've never heard of this Simi in Tokyo guy, but I'm still researching now. Look, this right here, I've been saying that since I was a small child, and that I will live to be 106. Right. And as long as my body can hold up from all the arthritis and all the shit damage I did to it playing sports in the military, I'm doing 150 in great mental health. But now if my body can't hold up, then I'm gonna call it a day. But I remember reading this one study on the human anatomy. This was maybe 20, 30 years ago. And it was saying that the human body is actually designed that if it's in a great environment, can live up around 200 years. But of course, we know we got polluted everything, so that's going to decrease that. Yeah. And there is a lot in the past that they don't want us to know, simply because you lose control of the people. And this is the main thing for me. I refuse to get sick. I refuse to get sick. Say it, Sackclaw. He laughed at the power of the mind statement when he believes and will die for something or someone he never met, which is all power of his mind. Jesus only exists because of power of mind. That's what was the thing, the show I used to like the show until they went sideways, got rid of my black guy. Something Gods, when the gods were, it was based off of a book. When my man who plays the spider guy, Anansi, whatever that storyline was, whatever that show was called, those guys existed because people believed in them. The less people believed in them, the less powerful they were. This is not true. Not one eyewitness wrote about it. You have zero eyewitness account. What you have is, when these were written, it's at least 5 to 10 people in between. All of your gospels were anonymous, and names were added to them later, and none of them appeared At best, I think Mark, a scrap, and it's only a scrap of Mark that they have that has like 1 to 2 verses on it, appeared like 50, 60 years after the so-called event happened. There's no eyewitness. And none of Paul's writings are eyewitness. Just because they claim it, I could claim it. I can write about Martin Luther King, and say that this is based on the eyewitness accounts of Jesse Jackson. I ain't never met the man. Well, that'd be a lie. I have met him, but I've been in his presence, so let me put it that way. But how can you verify that? How do you verify it? You can't. So you believe it. You simply believe it. Who is the eyewitness? What eyewitness? Because Paul claims eyewitnesses? Because the writing claims that they were eyewitnesses, but there's no archaeological evidence of that. What about the 125 different historians who were in the Levant and none of them wrote about it? Josephus was born in 34 CE, right? Which would have been a year or two after the whole crucifixion things happened. Yes, American Gods, thank you guys. Josephus was born. Now, he wrote about 4 different Yeshuas during that time, but none of those 4 did what Jesus did in totality, nor did they do any of the miracles. He didn't write about any miracles. There were no miracles that Josephus wrote about. The miracles all came later. Who's your eyewitness, Lamar? Mr. Johnson? Who's your eyewitness? Tell me your eyewitness. And this is accurate as hell. Jesus is entirely fictional caricature. That's why there are no archaeological evidence of his existence. None whatsoever. Coach, do you think words have power? And if so, because all Abrahamic religions have been plagiarized and twisted, could people be going around saying and praying in the wrong context, messing things up, causing negative energy? Words do have power, because if they are supported by your mental, your emotional, your sexual, and your intuitive energy, if they're not supported by that, they're just words. They're just words. How many people say they're going to win the lottery and don't win? They don't. How many people say they're going to be wealthy and don't win? How many people say they're going to buy a house and they don't? You can say a lot of stuff, but depending upon what energy supports what you're saying and thinking, it's not going to happen. And then in order for those things to happen, you have to do something. You have to put forth some physical energy in order to manifest that thing. Like, you want to see a miracle? Win the lottery without buying a ticket or anybody giving you a ticket. Just win it. Just the lottery commission call you up and say, "Hey, Brian, you won the lottery." You got to buy a ticket. Somebody got to give you a ticket. You got to get a ticket in hand somehow for you to win. Otherwise, no. There's cause and effect for everything. Even if you're walking down the street and a ticket blow up against your foot and you pick up that ticket and all of a sudden now you won, there was cause and effect of somebody else buying the ticket, losing the ticket, and you happen to be walking down the street when the ticket blew up too, and that ticket was a winning ticket. And things like that actually have happened, where somebody lost their ticket and somebody else found it and that person claimed it, and then they get sued. Take the time of the autographs and compare them to the historical contemporaries who did indeed write about it. What contemporary people wrote about it? Come on, man. We don't do vague shit. Come on with some details. Who? Give me some names. Give me some names. I am of this thinking as well that I think Paul's writings were written by Josephus and Philo of Alexandria. I think those two are the writers of the book of Paul's writing, are the ones who wrote Paul's stuff. And that's interesting. Why Jesus' brother didn't write about him? He had one. I don't believe it. But no, James didn't write shit. Because James didn't exist. There was James, brother of Jesus, who then became a member of the Sanhedrin in the writings of Josephus. Okay. Witnesses were the writers plus additional historical backdrops and subsequent history to trajectories, smoke, rust, fire, and preponderance of evidence. Okay. Then that would make Islam correct. That would make Judaism correct. That would make the Indus religion correct. That would make Buddhism correct. That would make the Hopi Indians correct. That would make the Aztecs and the Mayans correct. That would make almost every religion correct and proof and historical. You cannot use that mentality and only say it works for Christianity. That mentality would then have to work for every other religion as well. And every other religion has the same stuff. If we got hundreds of thousands of meta-lectures that talks about Horus, Osiris, Isis, Ra, Set, all these beings, then they exist as well. Because you also got writers of other communities, the Greeks, the Romans, the Kush, all of them wrote about the same people in and around the same time. So that would validate them. The same with the Sumerians, because the Sumerians' writings then became the writings of the Akkadians and the Assyrians and the Babylonians. So then all of theirs would be right, would be true. So you can't say, oh, it only works for mine. Yeah, I was waiting on it. I knew you was going to do it, Mr. Johnson. I knew you was going to do it. That's what I was waiting on. Because you got to name somebody. And I knew he was going to name Tacitus. It was either Tacitus or Pliny the Younger that you was going to name. First thing, Tacitus did not write about Jesus. That's the first thing you need to understand. Right. Tacitus didn't write about Jesus. Tacitus wrote about people who believed in Jesus. Tacitus also wrote this in and around 112 CE. So he's writing this about 80 years, 70, 80 years afterwards, about people who believed in this Jesus character. That's not proof of the character. That's like me writing about people who believe in Santa Claus. Does that mean that Santa Claus exists if I write about people who believe in Santa Claus? One of the reasons why we have so much information about Quetzalcoatl, for instance, is because the Spanish wrote about what the people believed about Quetzalcoatl, that there were people who believed in this. So no, Tacitus not. And if you accept that, Tacitus also wrote, no, 80 years is not a contemporary of evidence. 80 years is what people believe. So let's rock with me then, my guy. Rock with me since you accept that. Tacitus also wrote that when Vespasian left the Levant and went to Egypt before going to Rome to claim the emperor, claim and become emperor of Rome, Tacitus wrote that Vespasian was in Egypt and the god Serapis told two people to go to Tacitus. One man had blindness, another man was infirmed in his hand. And Serapis told those two men, have Vespasian spit in some mud, rub it on your eye, and blow in it, and you will see. Have Vespasian place his heel of his foot on your hand, and when he releases, your hand will be healed. According to Tacitus, Vespasian did these things, and the blind man could see, and the man with the infirm hand was healed. So if you say that because Tacitus wrote about what people believed in Jesus validates Jesus, then Tacitus also wrote about what people believed about Vespasian and Serapis, and therefore the miracle of Vespasian through the power of Serapis is also historical and real. You have to accept that as well if you're going to accept what Tacitus wrote about the Christians. Are you willing to do that, sir? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to accept that? If not, then you are showing your bias, and you are showing that, well, you're just showing your bias towards your religion. I told you what I believe in, Thomas. Power of nature, the power of the universe, of how it functions. Power within myself. Power within every other person. I don't believe that there's some deity that's doing some things. Could there be intelligent design? Could be. Is that intelligent designer in any of these books? Hell no. It would have to be so infinite that my finite mind could never possibly understand it in its completeness, and only could understand it in how universal laws work. That's it. Which religion believed in Serapis back then, Coach? I mean, Serapis was primarily a Hellenistic religion in Egypt for the most part, but understand that most people were henotheistic, so they would accept that that God exists. But this is my God that I worship. These are signs. These signs will follow those who believe. Cast out demons, speak with new tongues, take up serpents, drink poison. It will not hurt them, and lay hands on the sick. And David answered it perfectly. Not one Christian has these qualities. How many times do they show these pastors be faking these people's healings or creating placebo effects, and then the person goes right back to their pains? You can go to a zoo and find people who can handle serpents. We can go to India, and there are people who are immune to the venom of cobras, and they don't get sick. They don't die. There are people who are immune to certain poison. Hell, when I was stationed in Europe, we had to go through the gas chamber almost every other day for 30 days in order for us to become immune to certain types of gas, tear gas, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that immunity has worn off now, but back then I could walk into you can throw gas in the building I'm in, it wasn't gonna bother me. So that ain't got nothing to do with your beliefs. Nothing. So show me. If that's the case, where they at in the hospitals curing everybody? You know what I'm saying, Davey? Davey put it out there and he's right. Where are they in the hospitals? Said they're worshiping Serapis and don't even know it. Yeah, it just followed along suit. They just add, when they started writing about it, they took qualities because from all those people, Philo of Alexander would have known about Serapis, so he would have incorporated in his writing Serapis. But y'all notice that Johnson did not answer when I said those writings are about Serapis is written by the same man that he credits to writing about Thomas. Stop asking me the same question. I already said I don't know where we come from. Now, if you're not going to accept what I say and keep asking me the same question, then stop asking. Like, I'm not on here to repeatedly answer the same damn question when you were here when I answered it. Nobody knows where we came from. People believe they know where we came from. I went through the whole thing about our DNA and all that. Exactly, Brian. You don't find faith healers in hospitals for the same reason that you don't see fortune tellers winning the lottery. Okay, but come on, man. Stop trying to talk about other stuff. Look at him talk about other stuff, y'all. The apostles had abilities and they could pass them on, but extinct after their death. There is nothing that says that. There's nothing in your Bible that says that. That is a cop-out for Christians to be able to say, well, it's just not done now. You just got to have faith. Because those who have seen and believe is great, but those who have not seen and believe is far greater. Man, they got an excuse, don't they? But come on, dude. I'm not letting you off the hook, my guy. If Tacitus wrote about Serapis and the miracles that was performed by Vespasian through Serapis, why don't you believe in Serapis? Since you believe what Tacitus wrote, and Tacitus wasn't even writing about Jesus. Why won't you answer that? And David is a correct again. Christians don't talk. Christians just talk like parrots. Yeah, he gonna keep talking about the apostles having that power, but now people don't have those powers anymore because we're only talking about the apostles. That is not what your Bible says. Your Bible says that your sons and daughters will prophesy and they will preach. It says that there will be others who will come after me that will have healed, they will heal and all this kind of stuff. It talks about people laying hands. Paul talks in Romans, it talks about people having the gift of healing and the gift of tongues and the gift and the gift and the gift, and people having all these gifts. So your whole thing about the apostles is bullshit according to your own book. But he won't. I'm not answering another one of your statements or questions or even talking about any of the bullshit that you're saying until you answer. If you accept Tacitus' writings about the people who believed in Jesus, why aren't you accepting Serapis since he wrote about that too? So until then, as far as you're in the silent treatment. And I'm not talking to you because you want to come up here and spew this nonsense, but don't want to. But then you get trapped in it. See, that's a trap. That's why You got to understand when it comes to debating, 99% of the time, I see where your mind is at, and I'm gonna lay a trap for you. And the trap was laid, and now you're trying to deflect because you know that you were trapped with that one. You got trapped, brother. Now you don't know what to do with yourself, but try to change the subject. Now you didn't address it. Okay, hey, you addressed it. Read. No, address it again. Address it again. What did you say? Because I didn't see one comment from you that explained why you don't accept Serapis if you're going to based on Titus. If you're going to accept Titus based on Jesus, accept based on Titus. They don't want this. Let's see what else. What's some intellectual stuff people saying? I pray with many. I prayed with many Christians for many years in Texas, Oklahoma, Washington. Everybody prays like a child, begging God for everything, a job, healing kids. Yeah, and that's part of the problem. They begging. Like I don't beg for nothing. I command. Is this your answer? I accept other writings, wrong or right, as fragments of evidence that you combine and compare to form more complex pictures. That, okay, other people wrote about Serapis and his existence and what other people believed about Serapis. There were other Greek authors, other Roman authors who wrote about Serapis. Why don't you accept Serapis if that's how you're going to see it? Pliny wrote about Serapis. Irenaeus wrote about Serapis. And Irenaeus was a Christian because he wrote about people's belief in Serapis. Why don't you accept it? Ptolemy wrote about Serapis. Come on. All of them writing about Serapis. There are statues, there are inscriptions about him, things written on walls in Kemet about him. Why don't you accept him? Because there is just as much proof of Serapis. There are eyewitnesses who were sitting in the court with Vespasian. Matter of fact, Vespasian questioned whether or not, when the two dudes came to him, he said, well, should I do this? And then his advisor said, yes, you should do it because it will help you when you go to be inducted into the imperial religion. So that's why Vespasian went ahead and did it. And it is those council members who then verified it with the Roman Senate and the imperial religion that Vespasian healed those people through Serapis. So you accept that. So you believe Serapis exists. Serapis is a real god. You believe Serapis is a real god. And then you say, but. Now, when you say but means that everything said before is dismissed. So I don't know if you mean it that way. You say, at the end of the day, who died en masse for him, and nobody knows who he is. People did die. The Christians murdered tens of thousands of people in Kemet who believed in Serapis during the time of Theodosius in the 4th century. Millions of people died. I mean, not millions, but at least hundreds of thousands of people died believing in Serapis because they did not want to convert over to Christianity. So a bunch of people died. bunch of people died believing in the Druid gods. A bunch of people died believing in the Norse god. A bunch of people died believing in the Canaanite gods. A bunch of people died believing in the Phoenician gods. A bunch of our ancestors, well, my ancestors, I don't know where you're from. A bunch of my ancestors died believing in the Nomos, Nomos in Mali. A bunch of people died believing in Ifa. A bunch of people have died believing in Quetzalcoatl. So a bunch of people have died believing in their God when Christians came and killed them. You do realize Christians have killed more people to force them into Christianity more than any other religion, followed up closely by Islam. So if that's another metric for you to believe in a God, then you should believe in the feathered serpent. You should believe in Odomare. You should believe in all those deities. Oh, Lola was hitting the same thing. Okay, I'm gonna be done with this guy because this is where it becomes, this is the bias, not a real God. That your claim was you believing your God because people died for him, because these people wrote about him. You got the same thing about every other God. But you have a bias towards the one that you believe in. And that's fine. Believe in your God. I'm not trying to convert you. I'm just saying your argument doesn't work. Your argument is flawed deeply. And that there is absolutely, oh yeah, I forgot the Crusades. Hell, that's the Christians and the Muslims killing each other. Keep believing in your God. If that makes you happy, keep doing it. I'm not trying to convince you not to. But you're going to have to come with a different argument. Yeah, that argument is not proof, it's belief. And if you believe something, nobody can argue your belief because you're believing it. If you aren't willing to accept facts or logic, that's on you. Let me change this subject matter. After examining esoteric concepts in recent years, I think there is something to Hermeticism. I agree, everything starts in the mind and with a thought, an idea, including my son. Exactly. Dusan? Let me know if I'm saying that wrong. If I'm saying it wrong, just put the phonetics out there. But yes, Hermeticism is probably more than likely, to me, is the most valid thing out there. Because Hermeticism is the 7 Hermetic laws, and that's how everything functions in the universe. That's how everything is. You manifest everything starting with your mental, and then the more you learn how to encourage your mental with all your other energies from the other synaptics in your body, then you can manifest whatever it is. And then, of course, you have to know the law of cause and effect. Get your ass out there and do the work, but there has to be a balance of the masculine and feminine in order to manifest anything. And when you look at the Gnostics with a divine spark, if there is the reason why, one of the main reasons why I will look at the intelligent mind at work is because, like last night, it was it was a good one. Angelina had all kinds of problems waking me up this morning because I fell asleep, right? I had a dream. Then I had a dream inside. I had inception. I had a dream inside that dream. And then I went to sleep and had another dream inside that dream. So I was like 3 levels deep. And she says she was trying to wake me up and I was saying stuff to her. But I had to wake up from each dream in order to wake up and then recognize what was going on. But everything in the dream was tangible because they're frequencies and they became tangible in my mind. Yeah. Tons of people were killed by Christians during the Crusades. And then you got the Inquisitions, and then you got all the other heresy trials and witch hunts and all that shit. Hell, half the people, I ain't gonna say half, but a good third of the people they killed were their own ones who believe the same thing. If a Christian really wanted to convince people, they would just be up in the hospital doing miracles on the daily. And there's a reason why you don't see that. Why is it that they only do miracles in church services where they're getting money? Don't they make you just think about it for a second? Every time you do a miracle, is at a church service, Benny Hinn, you flailing that damn jacket. And if you ever seen one of those behind the scenes documentary where they investigate these fools, they already know that these people got certain ailments and the level of their ailments, offer them wheelchairs, and then, so they already know they can walk, and then tell them that they're going to walk. And then the placebo kicks in and the person is walking. But then the investigators go and talk to the people after the event, and all the pain and issues come right back. And then what's crazy is the people then blame themselves. It's a great scam. Well, that's not true anymore, Albert. You got the white Jesus in a lot of other countries now. You got, in Africa, but you got some Polynesians who are worshiping the white Jesus. You got Asians who are worshiping the white Jesus. You got a lot of people who are worshiping the white Jesus. Now you got some places like in Japan, they got them a black Jesus and they got them a Japanese Jesus. Yeah. Because this is how they spread that word, through violence. I got to flip this one up. So now his only metric, before it was all the contemporaries and stuff, now his only metric is whether or not Jesus is real or not, is obedience. His metric, and yes, definitely bias. The argument sound. Your argument is not sound. Your argument is just belief. There is absolutely nothing sound about your argument. You would lose in a court of law on this argument. You would lose in a debate with your argument. If we were having a debate and it was judged by people, you would lose. And especially if it was judged by people who had never heard of this Jesus, you would lose. Because you wouldn't have any metrics that actually fit a historical being. It purely comes down to your belief. And Muslims will say the same thing. The people I know who are in this, they will say the same thing. Everybody says the same thing about what they believe because it's their belief. And they believe it's true and it happened, all of it. Yep. And you're right. Anybody who was forced to believe this deity are worshiping deities that don't fit them. Oh, sir, you don't know much about science. If you think, even in science. I can guarantee that this is coffee in a cup. It's no longer coffee in a cup, man, it's empty. But this is a cup. It's right here. Tangible. They got weight. That's science. Easily proven that this is a cup. But now a lot of these, all this myth of this God shit is belief. Nobody can ever prove God. Nobody could ever prove heaven or hell as these ethereal places. Nobody can prove none of that. That stuff comes down to belief. Historically, we can prove whether or not certain people existed or not, right? There's proof. Now, some things are myth until we find proof. Like the city of Troy was considered to be myth until a dude who followed the Homer's Iliad and Odyssey actually found the city of Troy. The city of Nineveh was believed to have been myth until they found the city of Nineveh. And finding the city of Nineveh, they found like 200,000 tablets. Now, some of those tablets are of the stories of Baal and Marduk and Enlil, Enki, all them. Some of them were contracts. Most of them actually were like, I sold 12 donkeys to this guy. Arcad was believed to be a myth until they found all those tablets that talked about Arcad and what he did for Emperor Sargon. So there's a lot of proof about places and things and certain people. That's my book there, The Kybalion. You know that last A is an O. But The Kybalion. If you want to understand, if you want to get an initial understanding of the Hermetic laws and the universal energy, the basic initial understanding would be to read The Kybalion. I think there are 40,000 different sects of Christianity. And they all believe that they're the right one. Grand Rising Okie, ain't seen you in a minute, man. But David, again, Christianity is the greatest psyops ever perpetrated on humanity to lower our consciousness. I agree. And what's sad is that it wasn't even initially began to be that. They just wanted to shut down the Jewish revolts. And the shit got out of hand. I can't repeat this. I don't want my channel to get demonetized, but it just blows my mind that people literally worship what that girl call it, a grapist. Yeah. All right, at least the image of one. And that's the thing, Yoshi. There was never this Jesus character that the Bible refers to, but there were, Josephus talks about 4 different Yeshuas who were instigators. So there was that, but they never fit the bill of this Jesus character. But certain aspects of each one of them made it into the biblical narrative. You know, one pastor that struggles with Christianity, he's an engineer, but he struggles with it. Why is he still a pastor? Because the other side of his money is tied to it. He knows that factually there's a problem with it. There are archaeologists who are Christian. They know that the shit is wrong. They know that it is not supported. They supported by archaeology, but they can't let go of that belief. And that's all y'all got to do. That's all all y'all gotta do. Let's say it need to be a sunny day, clear skies. The weather people, the weather satellites are saying that it's an impossibility for it to rain in this spot today. And then somebody go out there and say, by the power of Jesus, the cloud and be like storm, and then the clouds just form out of nowhere and rain, lightning, and then it says woo, and then stop it. You notice that every miracle in the Bible, Old Testament and New, is always done, always written hundreds of years later, thousands of years later. None of it is ever recorded when it happened. None of it. Not one book of the Torah was written during the time frame of the person who was supposedly born. Not one. That's the smoke that should let you know there's some fire. That's some of that smoke. Nobody wrote about it at the time frame that it happened. Why is it that today we write things, we show things historically as they happen? You know, we got film on 9/11. We can see planes going into the building. So we know planes hit the building. We guarantee planes hit it. I'm not getting into a whole thing about who did it, but we know planes hit the buildings. We know the buildings came down, right? We know that for a fact. We got proof. 100 years from now, you can show video proof that it happened when it happened. We know it. They didn't have video back then. But no historian at any time frame ever wrote about it. I'm sure they had news people as well who was writing about things going on the daily. Nobody wrote it. Nobody recorded any of these things. Red Sea supposed to got split. Ain't nobody writing about it. People on the other side wasn't like, what the hell? The Kemetic people never wrote about the seas being split. We do, to a certain extent, exercise belief, but you got to actually have technical proof. You got to have some type of proof. You don't have any. You have no proof. There's no proof. Abraham even told people, I bought this land. This is where it's at, buried right here. It's been, what, 4,000, almost 4,000 years, and nobody has found his grave. There should be Abraham, Sarah, Jacob, Joseph, one of Jacob's wives, Bilhah, Rachel should be, no, not Rachel. Rachel was buried somewhere else. What's the other wife? Leah should be there with him. Where there should be a tomb that has those bodies in there. Ain't even found a tomb that you can at least say where there's 3 men and 1, 2, 3, at least 3 women. Where's it at? Been 2,000 years, ain't found it. Nobody knows. What did Lucky saying? It's easier to read it here. Sir, you remember when you 5 years isn't it what? I think it yes. But do you remember when you're in the womb? Did you know why it's a secret in life? Some other things are secret, like proving word of God and the firmament. Your statement really doesn't make a lot of sense. Do I remember when I was in the womb? No. If you understand how memory works, then the further away from an event that you get, the worse your memory of that event happens. Now, you do have core memories. Certain things are highlighted with so much energy that you will always remember certain aspects of that moment. Like, I remember the first time, so Mr. Man's store was across the street from my grandmother's house. And I remember the first time I was allowed to ride my big wheel across the street and went to Mr. Man's store. That's a core memory for me because it was a memory of freedom. And I was about 4 or 5 years old. I remember when my cousin Sandra got her hand caught in between her green machine and it ripped all the way to the bone because I remember seeing her bone. That was the first time I've seen bone, and the first time I've seen something like meat ripped away. That's a core memory. Ask me about other things that happened that day, can't tell you. What happened the next day, the day before, can't tell you. But those core memories, because they're back, like there was something massive or major that stuck with me, you know. So they're core memory there. But can you remember every day? It's in your brain, but they get pushed back further and further away. That's how memory works. So you're not going to remember when you was in the womb. It's rare to find anybody who has, you know, and what is it called? Eidetic memory, something like that. Or yeah, that's hard. That's just not how the brain works. So your statement is your point is incredibly invalid. And the only reason y'all believe it's the word of God because Origen of Alexander wrote that doctrine. He wrote the doctrine that the word, that those writings were the inspired word of God. And Origen was like 2nd or 3rd century. So I think he was both 2nd and 3rd century. I think he flipped over the centuries. But he wrote that as a doctrine and it became a doctrine. Before that, that wasn't a primary doctrine. People didn't believe that. That's a good question. If it's that same one that's out there, if it's the same one that's out there, it's a thrasher. The only truth. Math is one of the math is a reality. You have evidence, not proof. Again, proof is abstract. I got pictures that I had a big wheel. I got pictures that I had a green machine, that my cousin had a green machine. She got medical records of having to go to the doctor, and it was all the way down to the bone. So we got X-rays of it. It all started to Google history. According talking text be getting y'all. According to Bill and Carson, that's why we learn in books. Those are black people, isn't it? Can't necessarily say Thoth was a black person. According to the Emerald Tablets and according to other writings of Thoth, Thoth was an Atlantean. The Atlanteans were supposed to be a diverse people. Thoth, supposedly, according to the Emerald Tablets, when Atlantis sank at the end of the Younger Dryas period, he flew over to the land of Kemet, and then he started the Kemetic Society, the Kemetic and the Kushite Society. But it doesn't describe what Thoth looked like. The Sumerians equate Thoth with Enlil, and they make him kind of serpent. But giving animal heads to people wasn't so much that's what they looked like, but it was something of their behavior and their thought process on. So like serpents were looked to be wise, and rebirth is what serpents represented to those people. So they would give a serpent head to a person that represented that. Now you sound like the flat earthers. Gravity. What we call the energy, what we call the force that causes things to fall when released towards the core of the earth, we call it gravity. That's what we call that force. We know that force exists because it keeps happening. And depending upon the mass of that force, the mass of that object, and the length of time it falls, it has a terminal velocity, meaning that it's only going to fall so fast, it's going to reach a speed where that's as fast as it's going to fall. And there's hope. And if you're an engineer, you say you're an engineer, so you know there's a math equation to figure that out for a cup and a pair of glasses. It also has something to do with our atmosphere and all these other kind of things. So when flat earthers try to say that gravity exists, or Christians try to say we don't have proof of gravity, we do have proof of gravity. That's what we call that force. Do we understand every aspect of that force? No. But that's what we call what we have proven to be. Have you been to Ethiopia? Yep. A couple of times. This was in the 90s, the late 90s when I went to Ethiopia. You know that Ethiopia, like, it is got some highlands, it is high up and Kenya. Goddamn elephant. That's why they be winning marathons. And you know what, Sheila, you're right. There are people who believe that the planes flying into the building were fake. The only problem is you got multiple cameras from multiple people recording the same thing. Thank you. Oh shit, I'm that far behind? Let me catch up. It wasn't thought a bird. In the Egyptian, he was a bird, yes. The ibis, because the ibis was a bird that represented wisdom, but it also represented renewal because the ibis, which becomes the phoenix, would they believed it would stamp out his old body and be reborn. So it had its similarities. They also try to say that God is like the wind because you can't see it. However, the wind is only created due to the rotation of the earth. So the earth spinning on its axis is what creates the wind and the movement of the air. The rotation of the earth is what causes the jet stream. And the moon. The gravitational pull of the moon on the earth also participates in that process as well. Do me a favor. Out of respect, sir, please don't pray for me. Please don't pray for me. Out of respect. You wouldn't want me casting a magical spell for you, right? So don't pray for me. Yeah, I always find this funny too. Well, please don't ever pray for me again. But I always find this funny too that flat earthers will use a global map and then flatten it out to prove that the earth is flat. And then they'll add all those extra, they do the ice wall, and they add some extra continents. And then they do an ice wall and add some more continents. How do they even know what those continents look like? That should let them know that people just making shit up. You know what I mean? Like, if nobody's been past the ice wall, how do you know that these other continents exist in the shape that they exist? You know what I'm saying? How do they even know how far the ice wall goes if nobody's been past the ice wall? They kill me with that stuff. And yeah, that's the arrogance of, and I only experienced that with Christians though. I was gonna say religious people, but I've only experienced that with Christians. I've never had a Muslim say, "I'm gonna pray for you." Really, Yoshi? Yoshi said he's never heard somebody say, "Don't pray for me." I used to not. When Christians used to say that, I just used to just go about my business. But the more and more I started understanding frequency and energy, because I will give it to some Christians pray with a lot of emotion behind it. And there are Christians who pray, but their prayer is demanding. Right. And when you guys are Christian who's praying and they're demanding and they put a lot of energy behind it, I accept that frequency goes out. That energy goes out. I don't want that energy. Don't direct that energy and that frequency towards me, because then I got to deflect that bullshit. Right. So, but I don't know the person. I don't know how much true belief Johnson got. I don't know what kind of energy he's putting behind it. It's just like and I should have realized this at a younger age, because I remember when my grandmother told me the only reason the only reason roots work on people is because, one, the person who's doing the root actually literally believes in it, and the person who it's affecting accepts that person literally believes in it, and that their power is real. So I remember her telling me that don't accept that power is real coming, don't accept that energy. But, I was a kid when she told me that, so it really didn't click until much later. Yoshi, don't get put in timeout. Don't get put in timeout. I don't know what a Gregorian chant is. I've heard the term before, but I can't remember offhand what a Gregorian chant is. Don't get put in timeout, bro. Put your timeout around this joint. We ain't doing no chants for people. Like a couple weeks ago when I had a family situation, I knew I could ask y'all for just good energy. That's it, just good energy. I ain't tell you what the problem was. I ain't tell you nothing about the situation, because that part of it wasn't your business. But I do know that most of the people on here would have positive energy, that they would be like, everything's gonna work out for him, family, and everything's gonna be good. So I didn't mind that. But when these folks be going off trying to pray for you and you're against your own things that goes against what you're desiring, nah. You gotta keep that. You gotta keep people away off that bullshit. You don't want them doing that, because then you're like, damn, why am I struggling to get here? Why am I struggling to get this? I got a theory. This theory just popped in my head. I think one of the reasons why it's so hard for people who literally believe that they're going to win the lottery and they're putting that energy out. Think about all the other true energy that people are putting out trying to win the lottery. That's a fight. Yeah, think about that for a second. It's kind of like a football game or a basketball game. Both teams come in, if you in a championship level, not the little bullshit level, but at a championship level, if both teams believe that they got the talent, they got the game plan, they got the mentality, that they got the energy, that they're gonna win this game, those turn out to be some of your most hard-fought games, because both are like believing in their abilities and talents and scheme to win. And it'd be a good game. They'd be going at it, especially when you understand the nuances of the game. Like JJ Watts lines up, and in his mind, he gonna beat the shit out of this defensive end and get around him. This offensive tackle or this tight end. I'm gonna beat this motherfucker. I'm gonna sack this quarterback. And his will to do so, combined with his talent, he succeeds. The only time I've seen him struggle is when I've seen a offensive tackle or tight end that's got the mindset, I'm going to whoop. JJ ain't getting this shit on me. Not today. Not today. We ain't having this. I'm finna, you coming, spin, I'm back in here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen some guys who, and their mentality, you see them, you understand what I'm saying? That's when two wheels collide, there's that extra something that you got to have in there to get it done. It just, I was watching my Hawks last night, and we got to the third quarter, and somebody said something to, and see this, I watch the game. Somebody said something to Trey. One of them damn fans said something, and I watched Trey long enough to know the different looks on his face. It was one bet. Third quarter, I think he ripped off like 16, 17 points on the Spurs last night in the third quarter. But he was like, yeah, that meant it shifted. His will shifted. And what San Antonio was doing to him in the first and second quarter, they couldn't do to him in the third and fourth quarter. The power of the mind is an amazing thing when it's backed by when you know your skill set, your abilities, and what you know you can do. Yeah, some people say they're praying for you, but put it's bad energy. They say, do some Muslims throw shoes, or is that something cultural? That's something cultural, but it does have a religious aspect of it, but I can't remember what it is. I don't know. Brian B may be able to tell us what that is, because if he knows, his daddy Muslim, so he might know. I love dealing with people like that because they love giving them. I love giving them my energy of my loves to defy what they say and do, and the energy they bring my way. Okay. You know what? Some of these Christians don't realize that when they come on here and they're saying all this stuff. One, it reminds me of things that I haven't thought about in a while. But then it galvanizes me to go and research more and do even more videos. Like, oh, really? That's what we're doing today. Oh, thank you. Because now I'm finna go out here and blast this shit. Mm-hmm. Those are some Christians that say I will pray for you, but what they really mean is that they want you to go burn in hell. Yeah. That you're going to go burn in hell. Unless you come over and believe what I believe, you're burning in hell. The only thing I know is that during the second Iraqi war, was that the Iraqis threw shoes at George Bush. I do remember that. So that was an Arabic thing, I'm sure. Well, I know it's an insult thing. Like when we would do before you go in country, they would tell you things like don't put the bottom of your shoe towards somebody. So I understand that the shoe has a negative meaning. No, we're not really talking about you, Johnson. We're talking about Christians in general. So I'm glad you feel that way, but no, we're just talking about Christians in general with their prayers. You brought up a good point that we decided to have a conversation about, but it ain't really about you. We're really talking about energy. Positive, negative energy are everywhere, and describe religiously as spirit. Energy is what's felt and what motorizes us. Exactly. I don't know. Look, this right here, okay, so I'm from the South. That bless your heart, that's actually a little shade. That's shade that people be throwing. Like, you go see that baby and that baby ugly, and you're like, oh, bless his heart. That's an ugly baby. That's what you really thinking. That bless your heart is some shade that people throw. That's Christian shade. So Dwayne said, yeah, throwing shoes is considered an insult. Does the shoe look? I'm gonna tell you right now, when them babies are first born, I don't think none of them cute. My own included. Ain't none of them cute. Them little infants, when they first born, them first like week or so, when they swole up, eyes all puffy, they ain't cute. I know people be like, oh, it's so pretty little baby. No, they're not cute. I don't think they're cute at all. That's why I never say it. I never say, oh, it's such a cute baby or the baby. No, that joker need to get past the swelling stuff, getting their stuff together first. That joker would be ugly. My girls, they were born like premature, 30 weeks and 32 weeks, and they look like little aliens. They were not cute at all. I told them too. As they got older, I told them, y'all wasn't cute when you first born. Y'all sitting in them incubators, y'all was not cute. Now Lincoln, he was a lot cuter because he was full term, but you girls, now y'all got cute later. Y'all was cute. Oh, you mean when someone's saying I'll pray for you? Yeah, that I pray for you stuff. I'm like, keep that stuff to yourself, man. I ain't got time for that. I don't want you to pray for me. But I had to stop. I literally started telling people that it's been probably the last 4 years that I started saying, like, telling people, no, don't pray for me. Ooh, Debbie, I'm telling. Debbie said her niece. I'm telling your niece. I don't know what your niece said. I don't know nothing about your niece, but I'm telling. Oh, well, people are still talking about Santa Claus. So exactly. Oh, because you were saying that we still talking about Jesus. So this channel is called Why I Left Religion. Of course, we talk about Jesus. We talk about why we left this religion. That's logic. That don't mean Jesus is present. So we get on here and we start talking about the USSR. Does that mean the USSR is still around? No, it's gone. Oh man. Actually, I like this guy, Alan Watts. Very good videos. I like. He was on some good game back in the day. But Alan Watts is some good stuff. He only has some good. I like his videos. I used to listen to a lot of his stuff. His videos be about 3 hours long, though. I'm gonna tell you, shit might be like 3 hours. But you're right, Adonis. They're basically putting thoughts out that you need their God or religion. I don't need their God nor their religion. I understand what you're saying. Atheism should not be a reserved word for not believing in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. It's called adulting. Adulting. Now, what would you call that? If you didn't believe in, so if you anti fables, anti myths, I don't know. I did do this one. So it was this one Christian, and they was like, "Oh, I'm gonna pray that God comes and heal you and heals your mind and open your eyes and all this kind of stuff." And I asked them, I said, "Don't pray for me." And then they kept on, but I happened to have some chalk, and they kept talking. So I drew a circle, right? And then I started drawing some sigils in the circle and some other symbols. I said, "Yeah, because I'm going to cast this spell, so that your eyes and you'll wake up and realize the fate." And they was like, "Oh, I'm going to cast that demon out. Now I got to cast that demon out." I was like, "No, I asked you not to pray for me. Don't you cast that demon on me. I asked you not to pray for me." Right? And I drew the circle, and I got in, and I stood in the circle, and and they left. It's one of those times where you wish you had a camera. The camera was on. Oh. But I would do it to one in a heartbeat now if they try that bullshit. Especially after I asked them, like, "Hey, don't do that." I wouldn't be surprised if the Abrahamic religions came up with the word atheism. Well, would it be? I don't know. I have to research that one. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the Greeks or the Romans who came up with it. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because they've come up with other words. Like, I don't like using the word pagan because that was a derogatory word that they came up with for anybody who don't believe what they believe. Right? There's no such thing as a pagan religion. Christianity would be a pagan religion. If you're Muslim, if you practice Ifa, then that's Christianity is pagan. Right. I figured it was a Greek word. The Greek, since the Romans respected the Greeks, even though they hated the Greeks, but they liked the fact that they had antiquity. And then the Latin, and then they translated from Greek to Latin. A lot of our words in this Western culture, since they defeated and controlled everything, is going to have its reference to the Greeks and the Romans. So I'm gonna throw some salt on. Who is this number that keep calling me? I am going to call this number after this. I think I have a theory as to who that number is. But we getting long in the tooth, y'all. Long in the tooth. Plus, I got people coming over to the house around 6, so I gotta get one. I gotta get my desk away. But the desk look like hell done flown through it. Can't have people come to the house and parts don't look right. And I need to shoot a few videos because I know once they get here, I ain't gonna be able to shoot nothing. So that's what we're gonna do. That's it for today. I will see you guys on Monday, as usual. Monday, we're not doing any nighttime video shows because that nighttime ain't work. So I will see you guys then. Keep sharing all the videos. I greatly appreciate it. We have a lot of growth in November. Like on Facebook page, I think we had like 15, 17,000 new people join Facebook. So I appreciate everybody. Y'all can keep on talking in the chat. It's fine by me. But I gotta go. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you gotta free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is not negotiable. Good journey, good vibration. I enjoy everybody. And I'm out.